Hey guys, just quickly before we get started, there is 1 week left on the iCheck dash cam promotion. If you buy one of these things and you use my discount code WILD, not only will you save your normal 10% off iCheck products, you'll get free shipping, but you'll also get a free multi-tool. Anyway, let's crack on. G'day guys, Cam Wild Touring and welcome to this week's episode. I have been racking up the kilometers in the 300. In fact, in the first 9 months, I've already done over 30,000 Ks. Got a real variety of kilometers on the car, regular dad life stuff like school drop-offs, shopping runs, all that kinds of stuff. Also towing the boat, towing the caravan, heaps of full driving, dusty conditions, sand, rocky stuff, water crossings, the whole lot. So after 30,000 Ks, I'm finally ready to give you guys a review of this car. Overall, I'm really happy with the car, but it's definitely not perfect. There's good points and bad points, and I want to discuss all of those things with you, including oil burning, dusting, DPF burns, recalls, codes, fuel economy, performance on and off road, comfort, space, where I've gone wrong with my build, what I do differently, and future mods. So let's just get into it. I was so nervous buying this car. Yep, it's a GX, it's a base model, but it's still the most amount of money I have ever spent on a car, and it's the second new car I've ever bought. What made it worse was a lot of beat up, a lot of clickbait from motor journos trying to get you to watch their videos and read their articles. They were giving this thing a really, really bad rap, saying that the hot V design was going to be burning oil, it was going to be overheating, and there was going to be heaps and heaps of dramas with it. When I told the YouTube world that I was going to be buying a 300, I copped heaps of flack for it. My favorite comment was from someone that said, "You're an idiot for buying the new Land Cruiser. You're going to have to drive around with a 44-gallon drum of oil." So I haven't had any issues with oil burning at all. I'm sure the motor is using oil. All motors do. I've been getting regular 10,000 K services and I've never had to top up the oil between those service intervals. And really, given the environment that I've been driving this car in, I should probably be doing 5,000 K intervals, which would mean even less oil burnt. But I just haven't had time. I've been racking up the K so quickly that sometimes between 10,000 K services, there's only 4 to 6 weeks. But yeah, definitely haven't noticed any oil burning at all. There was also lots of talk about this fuel filter being mounted back here being quite susceptible to damage. I was a little bit nervous about that. It is a plastic fuel filter housing and it is quite low, and I thought it might get sprayed by rocks and sticks and stuff like people were saying. So I did go out and purchase an aftermarket little stainless steel surround for it. But to be fair, I mount a camera right down here as well. I mount a GoPro sometimes when I'm on gravel tracks and off-road, and I've never noticed sticks or rocks or anything flying up there. I mean, this thing's got a glass lens and I haven't smashed it on a lot of these crappy tracks, so I don't know how susceptible that really is. I don't know that I've heard of anyone actually damaging it yet, but at least there's aftermarket bits and pieces that you can fit to it if you do want to protect it further like I have. All right, let's talk dusting, and this is always a divisive one. If you don't know what dusting is, essentially it's dust from the atmosphere passing through your air filter and getting into your motor. And why that's bad is because dust is abrasive and it gets between tightly operating engine components and you can lose compression, eventually having to rebuild your motor or replace your motor. That's the long and short of it, a really basic explanation. Now, there was talk of the 200 series Land Cruiser being affected or being susceptible to dusting, and there's talk of the 300 series Land Cruiser having the same issue. Whether that really is an issue or not, there's a lot of conjecture about. What's causing the issue, if it is an issue, there's also a lot of conjecture about. But I'm aware of it and I'm careful about how much what I expose my car to. So how I manage that, I change my air filters every single service, which is far sooner than the recommended service intervals. I also carry a spare air filter when I'm traveling. I generally don't ever bother blowing them out. If I've got a spare one, I'll just put a spare one in. I will also hang way back on dusty roads so that I limit the amount of dust that the filter has to work with. So that's how I manage it. There is conjecture about whether it is the factory air box and the seal that it has on the filters, whether the dust is getting around the seal or whether it's the filters themselves. Now, for warranty purposes on a Land Cruiser that is still covered by warranty, I wanted to stick with genuine filters. So I did replace my air box with an aftermarket option, but I'm still using factory air filters. This air box FFM that AGD auto fit for me does offer a better seal, in my opinion, than the factory air box. So I think I'm limiting the chances of dust getting around the filter. I'm still open to dust getting through the filter, But when I pull off the clean side of this airbox and I have a look at the inside of it now, I think that there is less dust with this new airbox versus what I was getting with the genuine airbox. On my Pilbara trip series, I was periodically checking the top airbox, the factory airbox, and I was noticing a little bit of dust building up there, and that was with a brand new filter. So is it really an issue or not? I don't really know. Is this engine and the 200 series Land Cruiser engine more susceptible to other models? I don't really know, but there's definitely steps we can take to prevent dusting issues. I'll leave it at that because that's a complicated one. Where I am getting a significant amount of dust is inside the cab. Mostly in these two rear passenger doors. The door seals seem to be allowing a fair bit of dust through and it's building up. Also the rear boot, there's a fair bit of dust along the bottom of the boot. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. But yeah, I'm definitely getting a fair bit of dust in the back of here. I'm not great at keeping on top of that either, as you can see. I need to clean this out. Still full of Great Central and Simpson desert dust. DPFs, or diesel particulate filters, another fairly hot topic, pardon the pun. A lot of concern about DPFs on modern diesels. I certainly don't like them. It's emissions control crap, and the less stuff like that, the less you've got to go wrong, certainly. However, haven't had an issue with the DPF on the Cruiser yet. It's only 30,000 Ks in, so I would have expected it to not have an issue within that period. We'll see how it goes long term. It does a burn every 150 to 300 Ks, and I think it depends probably on the ambient temperature, the operating temperature of the car, how fast you're driving, how far you're driving, all those kinds of things I think probably play into that. These modern cruisers do come up with a graph that shows you how blocked it is, and it shows you as it's slowly burning it all off. They never used to do that in the older models, and I think that they do it now is because there were people that didn't realize that their cars needed a long drive to do a burn, and if they're only driving 2 minutes a day, that DPF just gets more and more blocked up, doesn't get a chance to do a burn, and then you have to take it to a dealer to do a forced regen or something like that. You can have issues. Now, I'm not getting those issues because I'm doing, fairly long drives fairly regularly, but having said that, I knew nothing about DPFs when I first bought this car. It's the first diesel I've had with a DPF filter, or with a DPF. And I was under the impression that if it started to do a burn and I was just about to pull into my driveway, that I'd need to go for a drive and let it burn off to do the best thing that I can for the motor. That's not true, and it's not what I've been doing. If it starts to a burn as I'm pulling up, I still pull up, shut the motor off, and it can pick up the burn the next time I go for a drive. It's not going to be an issue unless you're doing it all the time, and it's good to have that little graph up there on your dash so that you do know when it does need to do a burn. Yeah, no issues with the DPF. Although I think when they do go wrong, they're expensive to fix, so here's hoping that I don't have any issues. I have had one recall since I've owned the car, and that was something to do with, in neutral, some cars were still creeping forwards, so there was a software patch for that. I never noticed that issue. I don't think I ever had that issue, but I got a text from Toyota to bring the car in. They plug it in, they reflash everything, and then I drive away, I'm done. So that's a pretty easy process. I do have to go back to Toyota again because they finally got my second key available. So would you believe when you buy these cars, there was a shortage of chips in the world or something, and they weren't able to supply you with a second key at the time. So 9 months later, they're finally ready to give me my second key. They can't just mail it to me, they've actually got to plug the car in and recode things, so I've got to bring the car back to them. Technology. On that note, some of the tech inside this car is awesome, like the Apple CarPlay, the radar cruise control, the touch start, the electric park brake, all those kinds of things. Love it. And then some of the technology sucks, like that lane departure assist, the thing that keeps you in your lane. I have to turn that off every single time I get in the car. I wish there was a way to permanently disable it, but I don't think anyone's figured that out yet. When they do, I'll be disabling it if I'm allowed to. The other thing that sucks about technology is that everything is overcomplicated. There's extra sensors and cameras and stuff everywhere, and this car is modern. It is susceptible to issues from all of that extra technology that's built into the car. And I have had issues. I've had 2 codes in 9 months, which is not a lot, but it's still frustrating. The first code was when the car was 2 weeks old. It was stock as a rock, and I went for a drive down the beach and it threw a code, which seemed to affect that lane departure assist I was talking about, which I couldn't care less about, but it also affected my radar cruise control, which I love, so I couldn't use that. I had to take it back to Toyota. They tried to sting me $600 to fix it, which I did not pay. and they had to recalibrate the ADAS system, which is, and I've had to write it down because I always forget, Advanced Driver Assistance System. Basically a bunch of cameras and sensors that detect objects and also detect driver error and make changes to adjust for that. So yeah, that's why I'd lost my lane departure assist, because it probably couldn't sense where the lines were on the road, and I also lost my radar cruise control because it couldn't correctly pick up cars in front of me or whatever. So they fixed that. They had to recalibrate that system. 8 months later, I'm on the other side of the country. I'm on the beach again. I don't know if it's something to do with the beach or bumps or whatever, but it's thrown what I think is the same code again. I don't know for sure because I can't scan the thing. When I scan it myself, it doesn't show up. I've taken it to other workshops. They can't scan it. It needs to go back to Toyota. I'm 90% sure that it's the same code because it's affecting the same functions on the car. Again, I don't have that lane departure assist and I don't have radar cruise control. Again, they're probably going to try to charge me $600 for it, and it's a bummer now because the car's so modified. I may lose that one, but we'll see how we go. I haven't been able to get into Toyota yet, so I haven't been able to find out for sure that that's what the issue is or get it sorted. But yeah, the main annoying thing for me was that I had a 5,000k return journey back from Queensland and I had no cruise control. So I did 5,000 k's over 4 days, which is a lot of driving, and my right heel was absolutely killing me from accelerating manually the whole time. First world problems though. Other than having no cruise control for very long drives at the moment, the seating position itself is really comfortable. You are kind of squeezed into the cockpit a little bit compared to the outgoing model, the 200 series. I think the transmission tunnel's a little bit higher in this. The overall width's about the same, but you do feel a little bit more sandwiched inside here. But I'm over 6 foot tall, I'm over 100 kilos, and I am very comfortable in this. I've been doing, 12 hours of driving a day, no dramas whatsoever. The seats, I've got the base spec, the seats are very comfortable. You got climate control and all that kind of stuff. It's a beautiful car to drive, it's very comfortable. In the front row anyway. The back row, the kids are comfortable in the seats, but look, I'll move the camera and I'll show you. There isn't heaps of room here. These two front seats are adjusted about the same at the moment, which is big enough for me to be passenger or driver. Obviously got the baby seat on this seat, but you can see the issue. You've only got 250 mil there for leg room, which has been fine for my kids. They've not complained about the amount of room they've got. If you had teenage kids or you wanted to have adults in the back row on a really long drive, that's going to be an issue. Heaps more room in the middle seat, but the middle seat's narrower. It's not an issue for me, but just be aware of it if you are looking for a 300 and you've got larger passengers than I do. Engine and transmission performance-wise, I honestly think they've nailed this. It's really quiet, it's really comfortable. It doesn't lack for power in any situation that I've put it through yet. We're towing our caravan, which is about a 3.3 ton travel weight. And look, it's there. Nothing shits me more than people that are like, you can't even feel it. Yeah, you can feel the caravan behind you, but it does not lack for power. The whole setup feels really stable on the road, which is a lot to do with weight distribution. But the caravan doesn't bully the car around the road or anything like that. Yeah, I don't think I'll be looking at performance mods for this. I might be looking for some supportive mods that I'll talk about a little bit later in terms of cooling, but I don't think I'll be looking to push bigger horsepower or torque out of this engine. I reckon it's got torque for days. I'm really quite happy with it. Off-road, this engine and transmission, again, I think are really well paired for that kind of thing, especially low range work. With the sequential turbos, you're getting boost from very low RPM. So you've got power the whole way through that sort of rev range, which is great. And the transmission is really quick to smash up and down gears. So in the sand especially, this thing really shines. Look, it is an independent front suspension car that weighs 3.5 ton and it's set up for really towing and long distance touring. So it's not designed and it hasn't been built for hardcore full driving, but I think it holds its own, certainly for the kind of stuff that I'm putting it through. Payload in all wagons sucks. If you bang a family of 4 in your wagon and you hitch an off-road van on the back, you're almost definitely going to be over GVM and you're almost certainly going to be over your rear axle load limit. I knew that was going to be the case, and one of the first things I did was a Pedders GVM Upgrade, which is fantastic on and off-road, and now we're legal and safe. I did notice when I was loaded up with the additional weight that I could now carry that the brakes weren't performing great either. So I also did a Pedders brake upgrade, which has been awesome. Bear in mind that I've got the base spec model, the GX, and the GX has got smaller brakes than other models, so that may not be an issue across the entire line, but it definitely was an issue for me. Talking fuel economy now for a minute. This is another divisive one. The way that people calculate their fuel economy is different. I don't just go by the dash, I go by the pump, and I'm getting roughly 14 litres on average per 100 for sort of highway driving and day-to-day driving around town. Loaded up towing the caravan, which is around 3.3 tonne, I'm getting around 21 litres per 100, which I think is pretty good. Look, that's averaging over everything. That's not my absolute best run with the tailwind. That's including headwinds and some full driving and some off-road work and stuff like that. There's some loose averages for you. I think they're very good. What I wasn't really happy with was the fuel range. The 300 came with a smaller fuel tank than the 200 series Land Cruiser. I only got 110 litres in this model, and I found that range was a little bit limiting for the kind of touring I wanted to do. So I did feel like I needed to go out and put an aftermarket long-range fuel tank in this car. Again, that was done by AGD Auto as well. And now I went from 110 litres to 164 litres. So it's the equivalent of carrying 2.5 extra jerry cans. And I'm pretty happy with that now. Overall, I'm really happy with how the car build has performed. Most of it I would do again. The back drawer system, I think I nailed. The Black Label drawers are awesome. The Evercool drawer fridge, the K-On storage, and the Allspark battery system all perform really, really well. It's very flexible. It's simple, but depending on what kind of trip I'm doing, I can set it up how I need it. And I've got heaps of, flexibility, heaps of space in the back there. So I'm really quite happy with that setup. Probably what I would do differently if I was doing this build again, I wouldn't put ARB gear on it. I think for what I paid, I'm just not happy with the quality of it. As if you've been watching the build series late last year, early this year, you'll know that the first ARB bull bar was delivered damaged, dented and damaged. The first set of side steps were delivered bent, supplied bent. They didn't sit straight on the sills, and it took months to get those replaced. And even now that they are replaced, all the paint has pretty much, chipped off already. It's chipping off at an alarming rate anyway. I'm really not happy with that. So I would have looked at different bar work, I think. The only issue I am having, which is, it's not a function of the roof rack itself, I don't think, but more so how much stuff I've got up there. I'm still getting, unacceptable amounts of wind noise. Unacceptable by Tiff anyway, which means unacceptable by me. I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that. I'm already running ARB's wind deflector. I've got their light bar up there as well in an effort to sort of break up the tunneling of the wind. Off-Road Living mounted the solar panel brackets square on, again, to break up the tunneling effect of the wind. But it's still very noisy. I think it's just a symptom of having so much stuff up there, and also, it's not super aerodynamic, and I think the roof skin's aluminium, maybe not really, really well insulated, so I think things are vibrating and the wind coming through is making some noise. Don't know that I would have done anything differently though, because I need to have that roof platform up there for solar that I need for my big battery bank that I want to have for the off-grid camping we're doing. I want to have an awning up there for boys trips and the swag and whatnot, and I want to keep my Max Tracks out of the car, so they need to be mounted externally like that. So don't know that I would have necessarily done anything different. I think it's just compromise that we're going to have to live with at this point. But yeah, the engine and the transmission and road noise otherwise is really quiet. The revs are quite low at highway speed, so the car was beautiful and quiet until I bolted all that stuff on the roof. So Tiff's not happy about it, but I think it just is what it is. As for future mods, there's always future mods, sorry Tiff. I've finally got my hands on a Safari snorkel. This factory snorkel is not sealed, and I do want something for water crossings that's sealed to reduce my chances of getting water into the engine. So I'll be fitting that very shortly. I'm waiting on K-On to come out with some underbody bash plates and some front recovery points. I really like their gear. I know there's other stuff on the market, but I'm going to hold out to see what K-On do because I'm not in a mad rush. I'd also like to look at a scan tool, like a scan gauge, that kind of thing. I think there's something coming out soon that I'm trying to get my hands on, so I'll let you know about that if I manage to get one. But yeah, I want a scan tool because I want to keep an eye on intake temperatures and transmission temperatures. I haven't had any issues or anything, but again, there's a lot of talk about temperatures getting up to unacceptable levels when you're working these things hard, towing big vans up mountain ranges in high ambient temperatures. I've not had any issues like that yet, but I haven't done enough towing in hot conditions with this car to really make any sort of judgment on that. So I'll get the scan tool, have a look at those temperatures, and then maybe I'll look at a heat exchanger or transmission cooler upgrade if it needs it. We'll see. Overall, really happy with the car, absolutely love it. It's ticked all the boxes for us. I think we made the right decision overall. Definitely not a perfect vehicle, but a very good vehicle. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
I know I'm lucky, man, but I don't feel lucky, man.